1. Chapter 1. Getting started. When your warm market gives you the cold shoulder, start a warm conversation with a cool stranger. Russ Mcneil. Who should read this book? If you are new to the industry, the concepts in this book will prove especially beneficial. Promoting a business opportunity to people you don't know is a unique type of activity. It's easy to get discouraged before your efforts begin to pay off. By applying what you read here, you can accelerate the learning process and get tangible results sooner. If you're an experienced rep, you will already be familiar with many of the concepts herein. Even so, you are bound to find some fresh ideas. At the very least, the principles described will help you define a structure for your own prospecting style. No theory here. 2. This book is not about theory, it is about practical concepts that get results. While it does go into some of the psychology behind the principles, it goes beyond that. It also contains actual words and phrases that, with practice, will generate tangible results. The suggestions work because they are based on sound principles, not on one person's ability to exert his unique brand of influence. In theory, there is no difference between theory and practice. In practice, there is no relationship between them. Unknown. Do your own thing. It's all right to be a copycat. Just make sure that you copy the right cat. D. Self. This book includes mock dialogues to illustrate the concepts in this book. Each mock dialogue represents an excerpt of the overall conversation that includes some of the very words and phrases I use when I'm out in the world prospecting. Don't get the impression that these are the only words and phrases that will work. Such a notion is simply not true. Eventually, you will want to develop your own prospecting style, which will include words and phrases that fit your personality. Any prospecting style will work as long as it's based on the correct principles. How to use this book. You may apply any of the principles independently of the others. They are, however, much more effective when you apply them in combination with one another. One chapter is dedicated to each principle, not only to describe the principle, but also to give examples of how to incorporate it into your prospecting conversations. At first, it may not be readily apparent how to combine a particular principle with the others. That's because, initially, the explanation will be out of context. Don't let this seem confusing. A later chapter ties all the principles together. To get the most out of this book, read it twice. The first time, read it cover to cover to get a feel for the philosophies and attitudes it represents. The second time, concentrate on the core chapters covering the principles themselves. As you reread the chapters, you will have prior insight on all of the principles, and it will be more obvious how they complement each other. 3. Easy does it. I didn't simply wake up one day and suddenly have a complete understanding of the 8 principles you are about to learn. It took years for me to discover many of the ideas in this book. I use the word discover not because one originated the concepts, but because I had to uncover them on my own. I didn't have the benefit of taking notes while someone else explained the ins and outs of prospecting strangers. If you study and apply the principles described in this book, it won't take years for you to become an expert at prospecting. Even so, the development of your prospecting skills won't be instantaneous. It will take some time. Don't rush. As you begin to see results with one principle, add another until gradually you have incorporated them all. An order to the madness. Within the book, the principles are presented in a chronological order based on where they typically fall in the conversation. Read them in this order. However, I recommend a different order as you begin to employ them. The first principle to implement is mental judo, chapter 10. The second one is casualize and minimize, chapter 13. After you figure out these two, add the others in any order you'd like. Terminology. There are several key terms used throughout the book. They are: rep, short for representative. It is a generic term used to mean someone actively involved in a direct sales or network marketing opportunity. Common industry titles include associate, broker, distributor, independent business owner, BO, and representative. This book uses rep because it's generic, it's easier to read, and most importantly, because it's easier for me to type. Tools. Most companies encourage the use of professionally produced marketing collateral to promote their opportunities. Such collateral may come in the form of tapes, magazines, CD-ROMs, or DVDs. This book uses the terms tools and prospecting tools interchangeably to refer to all these items. Jack. You will see this name sprinkled throughout the book. Jack is the name of a fictitious prospect. We pick on him incessantly and without mercy. Sorry, Jack. No wonder he's not so crazy about the industry. Poor Jack. Maybe one day he'll wise up. 4. Team building, team-based opportunity, and the industry. These terms and others like them are used throughout as synonyms for network marketing and direct sales and party plans. Philosophically, these business models are quite different. However, from the standpoint of prospecting, they are too similar to draw a distinction. In this book, the synonyms are used as generic references to include these business models. Read them in the context that makes sense to you. What's the big deal about strangers? When first introduced to the industry, I was like most other people when they get started. I was excited. I knew that all my friends and relatives would see the same potential that I did, especially with all the credibility I had with them. I was certain that the big bucks would be thawing freely in no time. Imagine my surprise. For starters, none of my friends or relatives had even the slightest interest in my opportunity. I quickly discovered that any credibility I had with them did not extend into the realm of business opportunities. The people who knew me simply did not see me as a font of business acumen. A prophet is not without honor but in his own country, and among his own kin, and in his own house. Mark 6 verse 4, KJV. Imagine that. I ran into another obstacle as well. It was only much later that I realized the nature of the obstacle. The more a person knew about me, the more they knew about my past failures. What reason did they have to assume that my new business venture into would be any different? I had a fabulous opportunity that I was excited about and believed in, but no one I knew seemed to care. I found myself wondering what to do next. Then it occurred to me that I live in a city with 5 million other people. It also occurred to me that I only needed a few of them to attain financial independence. All I had to do was find this precious few, and have them join my team. So goes the first law of prospecting. First law of prospecting: the list of people who don't know you is infinitely larger than the list of people who do know you. Once you form the habit of prospecting strangers, you will never run out of prospects. Think about it: people are turning 18 faster than you can get to them. How could you ever run out of people to approach? This law gives you a major 5. Advantage in building your business. Since you believe in your product and opportunity, you should want to share it with the people you already know and care for. Many reps, however, will get better results talking to strangers. Ironically, you have more credibility with strangers than with your friends and family. The second law of prospecting spells this out. Second law of prospecting: people who don't know you will take you more seriously than the ones who do know you. Prospects form opinions based on what they know and what they see. Jack, or whatever your prospect's name is, will evaluate you on what he knows about your personal track record and how will you relate to him. When you first meet Jack, he has no knowledge of your past successes or failures. His opinion of you and of your offer isn't influenced by your resume. All he has to go on is his first impression. That's good news. There is an unlimited supply of people willing to take you seriously if you relate well to them. In fact, you could really mess it up with a bunch of them and still build a successful business. Now that you have that monkey off your back, take a deep breath and relax. Besides, if you don't start meeting new people, what will you do when you get to the end of the list of people you already know? That's the challenge and the reason for this book. Building a team with strangers. Since I got such a chilly reception from my so-called warm market, I set out to build a team with people I did not yet know. First, there were questions that demanded answers. Asterisk: where would I find the people with which to build a team? Asterisk: how would I go about meeting them? Asterisk: what would I say to them when I did meet them? Instinctively, I knew the answer to the first question. We pass people every day who are prime candidates for our opportunities. Unfortunately, that is exactly what most reps do, pass them. Think about your daily routine and the places you frequent: grocery stores, restaurants, elevators, and my personal favorite, gas stations. Have you ever turned the tables on a telemarketer? See, you passed another one. The third law of prospecting summarizes this idea. Third law of prospecting: some of the people we pass in everyday life would be hugely successful in our business, but unless we prospect them, we'll never know which ones they are. 6. The other questions caused me real concern. How would I approach them, and what would I say? Quickly discovered that no one seemed to have complete answers to these questions. Obviously, there were people who had methods and styles of approaches that were working for them. The challenge was that no one seemed to be teaching the ins and outs of prospecting strangers. Oh, sure, there was plenty of teaching about specific one-liners, but what was missing was an organized strategy of conversation that prepared the prospect for responding to the one-liners. The purpose of this book is to fill that void. Prospecting versus sponsoring. Prospecting is a vital aspect of team building. Keep in mind, though, that it is only a part of the process. For the purpose of this book, we draw a distinction between prospecting and sponsoring. Prospecting is the process of approaching someone you do not know and using conversation to determine if he or she has an interest in exploring your opportunity. Sponsoring is the process of sharing the details of your opportunity with the intent of enrolling them as a rep on your team. This book focuses on the development of prospecting skills. Sponsoring is an entirely different subject. The sponsoring process is more specific to your particular opportunity, and this book will not discuss it. As far as this book is concerned, the goal of the prospecting process is to get a tool into the hands of an interested prospect and following up a day or two later. Magic questions. Author's note: this section briefly introduces the term magic question. The concept of magic questions is important enough to warrant a separate discussion, so a later chapter covers the topic in detail. What in the world is a magic question? A magic question is the capstone of a prospecting conversation. Magic questions determine whether the prospect wants to learn about your opportunity. An effective one makes it easy for Jack to say yes and hard for him to say no. The entire prospecting process guides the conversation to the magic question. 7. The prospecting moment. A prospecting moment is a point in a conversation that represents the optimum time for you to ask your magic question. The goal of the prospecting conversation is to create a fertile verbal environment in which the prospecting moment can occur naturally and within the available time. Once you have mastered the principles of prospecting, you will orchestrate prospecting conversations at will. You will be able to gauge the timing of the conversation and know just when to initiate the prospecting moment. The entire process will transpire so naturally that the prospect will never realize what's happened. You will be an artist, and every conversation will be your canvas. If a geek-speaking software engineer can learn to meet and prospect total strangers in face-to-face conversations, then you certainly can. 8. Chapter 2.